Radha Stirling is a human rights lawyer and the founder and CEO of the group Detained in Dubai, an organisation committed to helping people unfairly treated by the justice systems in the Middle East. And she joins me now live via Skype from Marbella in Spain. Hello to you. How common are cases such as Rahaf Alqunun's?
I mean, we get calls all the time, and we have for the past several years. They're very common, but of course, I mean, Rahaf has made it to Thailand, which is amazing, because most people who want to escape Saudi, for example, I mean, it's like trying to escape from the Cold War. It's just practically impossible with male guardianship. So the fact that she has made it to Thailand, I think, is going to be an inspiration to other people who are looking to flee.
You say it might be an inspiration, but how important was that incredible amount of attention specifically generated by social media and then more widespread the traditional media? How important has that been to her personal case?
I mean, in my experience, we can highlight judicial issues, but unless the international spotlight is on a case, it's unlikely to lead to someone's safety. So in this particular case, because I think the fact that we've had the recent issues of Khashoggi, we've had Saudi under the spotlight, we've had the whole Middle East and essentially human rights under the spotlight, the fact that social media jumped on it straight away, human rights organisations and governments and diplomats all over the world, has absolutely led to Thailand accepting for her to meet with the United Nations before automatically deporting her. And I think if it weren't for the international spotlight, she would have been quietly deported back to Saudi Arabia, and we wouldn't have heard anything more of it. And it's just very much like in the case of Princess Latifa from the UAE. She was apprehended in international waters. It hadn't hit the press yet, so she was quietly sent back to the UAE, the country that she was fleeing.
And so you say that this will provide inspiration to others, but for other women who find themselves in the circumstances that Rahaf Alqunun says she was in, what exactly are they able to do with this case and their desire to, in fact, make a better life?
Well, I think this case, and with the recent Saudi cabinet reshuffle, I think we're going to see a little bit of a change of policy, where they're perhaps not looking to be so aggressive and maybe looking at more of a reformist attitude. I think that the Western governments need to essentially pressure the Middle Eastern allies to change some of the laws in relation to male guardianship, which are clearly unfair and clearly are causing problems like we're seeing now. But I think the thing is, right now, we have this woman, we have a lot of countries hopefully willing to provide her with asylum. And if they don't, we can't be criticising countries like Saudi Arabia for not providing women's rights and this kind of thing, unless we're willing to stand up for them ourselves. So I suppose what we're going to see is what Western government is going to step forward and provide this woman with asylum, and what kind of a message is that going to send to the Middle East that they need to make these changes in order to stop this kind of reputation damaging events from happening again.
How receptive, though, do you expect Saudi Arabia and other countries throughout the Gulf would be to that kind of international pressure to relax male guardianship laws?
I mean, we've seen Saudi pull out of Canada over criticism about their legal process, and we've seen people literally killed or detained for expressing their point of view. So, I mean, we're going to see a lot of opposition to this kind of change, but it's not going to stop happening. So I think, Saudi Arabia, we have many of the people looking to be a progressive nation and who want to actually and support the outlaw of this male guardianship. And yet, on the other hand, we have this Wahhabism, which is, the spread of a more extreme point of view that the government is going to have to sort of negotiate in order to make some new policies. But I think it's very clear that Middle Eastern countries are going to have to change if they want to be international players and want to preserve their reputations, and they want tourism and they want investment.
Now, we remember Saudi Arabia relaxed its laws in relation to women driving in recent years. Are there other social changes already underway that perhaps haven't had a lot of attention in the West?
I mean, we're going to have to see the social changes that take place. I mean, even after they essentially what seemed to be a bit of a publicity campaign, because it didn't necessarily have the support of the public. So even though it was suddenly legal for women to drive, if they didn't have the permission of their male guardian, then they weren't able to do so. And then later we saw that female activists and people who were calling for political reform were then jailed. So there's been kind of a mixed message, I think, from Saudi Arabia as to where they're going to go with this. But I think after Khashoggi and the absolute annihilation of any view that this country is an ally and that they're acting in any lawful way and respecting international conventions and international laws, I think that Saudi is going to want to make up for that, essentially, and make the changes necessary for the West to be able to deal with them without the embarrassment.
Now, you've been talking about the international pressure that you believe should be brought to bear on countries in the Middle East in terms of these male guardianship laws. Do you think there should also be some attention paid to countries such as Thailand, given what we've seen happen here with Rahaf Alqunun, where Thailand did appear as though it was willing to assist Saudi Arabia to turn her around?
Now, this is a real problem, actually. The fact that Thailand has been willing to send people who would be subjected to human rights violations, torture and possible execution. This is a country that we don't issue travel warnings to that effect to. But if anyone had ever had any issue in the Middle East, it looks like they are jurisdiction shopping in Thailand because they think they can easily bring them back from that country. Perhaps there are deals in the background that we don't know about. Perhaps there's corruption. But I mean, Hakim, he was no fugitive. Interpol knew exactly where he was. They knew he was in Australia. He's a public figure, and they could have applied to Australia to arrest him. Instead, Bahrain circumvented those normal protocols and directly asked Interpol to intervene when they knew he was going to Thailand. And if Thailand is going to breach human rights protocols that we have in Australia, then we have a serious problem as far as relations are concerned. And you know, as far as extradition treaties are concerned, I think that all countries need to have some sort of an international policy whereby we all abide by certain protocols regarding extradition. And that is, if the person is going to be subject to human rights violation, torture or possible extrajudicial execution, an extradition should not be allowed.
Now, finally, I'd like to ask you about Australia's role here, what you believe it should be, given that we know Rahaf Alqunun had a visa to visit Australia. She says she was seeking asylum once she arrived here. Australia, of course, has said that it is indeed open to accepting her if the UNHCR determines she is a refugee. Do you think Australia has any role here to play right now?
I think that Australia has a strong role to play as far as influencing the way that Interpol acts, that we enter into agreements with our allies and with our trade partners like Thailand, and that when someone like Rahaf comes to seek asylum, that yes, she is given asylum, and that case, and given the publicity surrounding this case, is used to essentially promote human rights internationally. And I think that would be a wonderful thing for Australia to do so.
Radha Stirling, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.